is going to be the masseter. So what I'm going to do is remove some of the skin over on the side here. I'm going to pull back this flap of skin so that I can get a good exposure onto the masseter. Just going to cut that skin right off. Okay, now the masseter is underneath some of this superficial tissue here, so I'm going to cut through some of the muscle here to reveal the masseter. And you can see I'm not making very deep cuts. In fact, I'm trying to minimize the amount of cutting that I need to do here, so as to reveal this masseter. And pull back this tissue here. And what you can see underneath is the masseter. And we got some glandular tissue right up in here. I'll pull this back so you can see it a little bit better. There you go. Switch to a probe now. I'm just going to use the probe to really expose that masseter so you can see it a bit better there. The masseter is a muscle that functions in elevation of the jaw, the mandible. You can see it's in the cat here, it's a rounded muscle. There it is. Okay. So you can see there's the masseter right there. Got a good exposure. The masseter. So there's the masseter. Okay. I'm going to switch my attention now. I'm going to instead start to look at, there's the mandible, there's the lower jaw right there. And I'm going to go right underneath the mandible, still using a probe. I'm going to use this to separate some of this superficial tissue on the outside here. And when I do that, you should see underneath here a pair of muscles. Use the scalpel here to clean this up a little bit. You can see I'm just cutting away some of that connective tissue there, so you can see this a little bit better. You have a pair of digastrics on either side there. Here's one of those digastrics. There. You can see that's a digastric muscle. Okay. It's going to depress the mandible, so it depresses the mandible, or the lower jaw. And if we want to, we can come over to this side and do the same thing. I think I'm going to cut away some of that superficial tissue here, just so we can get a little bit better exposure and see that other digastric underneath here. Wonderful. Okay. There it is right there. So you've got the two digastrics. I can cut that so I don't tilt. Cut that just like that. And there you can see the two digastrics. So we've got a digastric, one on either side there. There's the digastric. All right, there's the one on the left side of the jaw. And here's the one on the right side of the mandible. Now between those, you have a muscle that runs right down through the center. And this muscle right here, I can separate that. This muscle right here is called the mylohyoid, going from the mandible. It's part of your suprahyoid muscles. Goes from the hyoid bone all the way up to the mandible. So we call it the mylohyoid. Okay, and you can see the mylohyoid sits right between the two digastrics. Next, we're going to take a look at some infrahyoid muscles. These are going to be below the hyoid, and so I'm just going to come down here to the neck. I'll pull this up here so you can see it a little bit better. And come down here and I'm going to separate these muscles. Now, these muscles that make up the infrahyoid muscles are about as thick as paper, so they're very, very thin. You have to be really careful when you go to separate these, that you don't actually cut the muscle away from its origin. So you can see I'm just very carefully separating these down here. And I'm using the forceps just to pull up a little bit so I can get a little bit better separation. There we go. And I'm cutting through some of that paramecium between the actual muscles. It's that connective tissue that holds them together there. I'm cutting through that just to separate it a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Alright, here we've got a nice one right there. This muscle right here starts on the sternum, and it runs all the way up to the hyoid, so we call it the sternohyoid right there. Sternum, okay, is its origin, and then its insertion is going to be into the actual hyoid, so we call it sternohyoid. Okay. We have another one right here too. You can see it's sternohyoid. Okay, same thing. From the sternum all the way up to the hyoid. So sternohyoid right there. Alright. I'll move those to the side there. So I want to show you some muscles underneath here, if we can. And you can see that connective tissue there. I'm going to carefully cut that. Like I said, I don't want to cut the muscle. I don't want to actually cut the muscle, but I do want to reflect and show some of the underlying muscle there, because there's a muscle that sits right underneath here. Let's see if I can show you this one. Might be better off to use this side here. Let's see. Ah, there we go. Okay. So there again, I just want to clean it up a little bit. Okay.